You're never going to believe what happened over the weekend.
What happened?
So I met Sally, our guest today.
I'm ready to not
Jacoby
believe.
Murphy. Sally, hello. First of all, hello.
Oh,
hello. Greetings.
Yeah, I met Sally for breakfast in the town where she lives, and we walked down to an antique store. And as I was perusing this antique store, out of the corner of my eye, on the top shelf, tucked back in the corner, I see something, and I'm like, no, it can't be. No, it can't be. I refuse to believe that it is. And I got over there, I reach up, I pull it down from the top of the shelf. It is an Ewok treehouse from 1984, Kenner Ewok treehouse. And it works, like it has a little elevator that works. You can pop the top down and it closes, so it looks like a tree. Then you press a button and then it expands,
goodness.
and there's a whole Ewok world in it. It was $25, Steve, and I bought it.
That should be like $250.
I agree.
Like, straight up. I mean,
I've never.
Yeah. In condition, it's a good condition.
I mean, I think there are little odds and ends that aren't there, but it looks good.
Right.
Like the stickers are all still on. It's got the little like green wall. It even came with an Ewok. It was the find of the century. I don't want to exaggerate, but it was the find of the century. So the next time you're in town, Steve, we're gonna act out some of these episodes in that treehouse.
Oh, you know the one we won't act out in that treehouse?
Tell me,
the holiday special,
You're
or we could, because I mean we just make it up as we go along.
Yeah.
We'll just be like,
well, any writing we did for the holiday special would be better than what was written. So
oh man,
I think that's fine.
Welcome to a spooky episode of This Endorian Life, a Star Wars podcast from the Radio Meanwhile Network. My name is Steve Rudd.
I'm Nick Gunning, and we're following the Ewoks from Return of the Jedi to the Ewok TV movies, the 80s cartoon, and beyond.
Today, we are discussing the comic book Star Wars Adventures, Tales of Vader's Castle, issue number 4, with Sally Jacoby Murphy, the Queen of Halloween.
Woo woo.
Sally, welcome back.
Thanks. I had to be my own hype man there.
Yeah, I liked it. You're bringing the energy. You're coming in hot. It's good stuff. How have you been since last Halloween?
Good.
Okay.
Trying to keep Halloween strong year round.
I know you
not
do.
many people are following me, but that's all right.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think you're doing it. Today was an exciting little Ewok story that we read. The frame story that surrounds it is very much like Terrifying Tales, which we covered last Halloween.
I get that. I get that vibe.
Yeah. So today's comic book was written by Cavan Scott with pencils by Robert Hack. The title of the individual story here is Night of the Gorax. It was released on October 24th, 2018. And collected in paperback in a collection called Star Wars Adventures, Tales of Vader's Castle. And then there's a bigger, more expansive hardcover called Star Wars Adventures, Beware Vader's Castle, which is how I read it.
Oh, man.
But in this story, you have the Star Wars Adventures line, which is like a junior level comic book, so it's like 8 to 12-year-old kind of geared towards. That's the sort of the frame here is the Star Wars Adventures. And in that, you have a group of rebels who crash on Mustafar and run afoul of all these spooky things going on. They meet Vinay, who is the main character from Terrifying Tales, which we did last year. And in that collection, Night of the Gorax here is one of the stories that the rebels were kind of telling each other why they were stuck in this spooky place. And that's where we get Night of the Gorax.
Oh, man. This came out in 2018.
Yeah.
So this is exactly why the Lego series is modeled like that, because this is modeled like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. For our featured cast member today, I'm going to do the artist. So Robert Hack is best known for his work on Archie's horror line, including The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, The Black Hood, and Archie vs. Predator 2. Sally, have you come across any of these in your queendom?
I have watched The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, the TV show.
Okay.
But I have not read any of the original. But I will say I really like the TV show. I think it's great.
Yeah. I haven't read any of the original either. Like I haven't Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I picked up a couple of times, and it is like dark and adult.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's a little too much for me. But you can definitely see the Archie horror vibes in the art of this comic today. It's got the stark coloring and sort of the scratchy look to it. Is really reminiscent of Chilling Adventures or other things. Sally, what did you think of the art?
Oh, I love it. I think the colors are great. It's interesting. I didn't look up when it was created, but I feel like you can tell that it's a newer one. And I'm not exactly, I think it's like some of the starkness of the colors and stuff. I don't know. I feel like I got the vibe that this has to be like newer in a good way. Like, I think they're doing some really interesting things.
Yeah. Well, I think the way they use, like, you know, when you have the Dulux and the villain, the backgrounds, like the sky and everything is all red. When you have when you're doing the Ewok village before things go south, you have a lot of like blues and greens. And as the plot goes on, we kind of transition into some more browns and grays, getting into like the darkness of it. So yeah, I think that presentation is a lot more modern.
Yeah.
Comes across. Which thumbs up from you, Sally. You're a resident artist, so.
No, I really do like it. Well, and I think it's interesting because I feel like, especially when they're telling the story and the Ewoks are talking to the gulags. Gulags.
Dulux.
The evil dudes. I think it almost looks like wood grain prints. Yeah. Which I always think is really cool. So.
Yeah. It's funny, like when we see illustrated versions of all these characters as opposed to like the cartoon and the actual movie, they always seem much harsher. Like everything seems grittier. The trees are like harsher and woodier as opposed to, I mean, I guess that's just how it translates, you know, if you do that, but it's like it's a totally different form of artwork, and it always comes out. The Dulux always look really evil, intense, you know, but in the show they look silly almost, you know. So
well, everything has kind of a dusky vibe outside of like the very first, you know, 5 or 6 panels when you do have some greens and blues. After that, everything seems sort of in shadow and overcast, and it the gloom of it kind of permeates. You know, it just comes right through in the art. So yeah, I thought it was interesting, and it's very oddly paired with the art of Star Wars Adventures, which is almost, I don't know, it's like bubbly and cartoony,
polished and refined. Like it's much different.
It's a weird juxtaposition, and that's kind of how this works. Like the frame story is all in that sort of bubbly, almost 1950s sheen look, and then each individual story kind of breaks off into its own style. And yeah, I think Robert Hack's pencils here serve the story pretty well. Should we get into the story, Steve? You want to hit us with an uber detailed plot?
Yeah. Synopsis for the Night of the Gorax. We open to young Chirpa waiting in a large tree along with Rayleigh for a signal from Chuka that he must have mistakenly missed while shooing away Wisties. Chirpa blows Rayleigh's Bora horn, which sends a beowulf on a frenzy towards them. They both leap on top as it passes under them, but Chirpa does so rather clumsily. They lead the beowulf into a trap. Young Chirpa and Rayleigh return home to the village with their monstrous prize to find that many walklings are missing. Chief Buzza and Makrit, the current shaman, discusses the nature of the missing Ewoks. Rayleigh convinces Chief Buzza that likely the Dulux stole the walklings during the night. Makrit warns Buzza that isn't likely the reason, and when Buzza objects to Makrit, he suddenly changes his mind and agrees with Makrit. Rayleigh and Chirpa are skeptical of the whole conversation and decide to check out the Dulux camp themselves. Chirpa and Rayleigh find the camp mostly destroyed and abandoned, with only giant footprints left behind as a clue to what happened. Suddenly, a Dulux takes Rayleigh hostage, claiming she will be a sacrifice. Before Chirpa can question the Dulux as to why a sacrifice, the Dulux is caught in the power of the Sunstar by Makrit, who secretly followed them to the Dulux camp. The Dulux sputters a message to the Ewoks that the true enemy, a great one, destroyed the village and offerings must be brought to Mount Krana. The spell the Dulux is under breaks as Rayleigh escapes his grasp and she stomps his lights out. At the base of the mountain, Chirpa, Rayleigh, and Makrit find a huge structure in the shape of an Ewok with all the walklings trapped inside. Chirpa rushes in to help the Walklings, asking for Macrit's help, but Macrit slams the cage door closed, claiming the chief's son is what he needed. The author of this tragedy was Macrit himself. At that moment, massive footsteps are heard, and Macrit celebrates the perfect sacrifice. Behold, the great devourer appears, a Gorax. Chirpa desperately tries to escape, but there's no time. The Gorax is already upon them. Thinking quickly, Rayleigh blows her borehorn. Suddenly, the collective ree of bearwolves can be heard as they stampede through the small valley at the base of Mount Krana. The Ewoks leap on top of the bearwolves as they blast through the crude jail, leaving Master Macrit all by himself at the feet of the mighty Gorax. But the sacrifice must still be made, and it was. Ooh, yeah. That's pretty dark.
It is dark. And before I read it and I just like saw the imagery, I thought we were going for like a zombie thing. The look of it has kind of a zombie vibe, but we didn't go there. We didn't.
Very washed out, very like earthy toned. You know,
and even just some of the character designs, I thought, oh, okay, this is like a zombie thing. But I mean, the ritual sacrifice is also kind of a horror trope. Sally, as our resident horror expert, how do you feel this represents Halloween? Were you picking up some tropes and different vibes going on?
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
Okay.
The zombie thing is interesting. You and I had talked a little bit about it, but even like the cover, I mean, that looks super like Night of the Living Dead right there.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also, this back, so the cover, which all of you cannot see, but the Gorax is behind them and is looking very like old school monster vibes, like sort of Black Lagoon, which I like.
Yeah, I see that. So I was reading a little bit about the background on this, and because the rest of the stories are set like pre-Rogue One, they're all like the Star Wars Rebels and Solo, like that's what's getting a lot of play in this collection here. The original idea was to have it be Wicket and Tebow, but then we were like, oh no, it's Rogue One era, so that's why we have Logray and Chirpa before they're in their final positions, which I think is kind of cool. To see like
Rayleigh is Chirpa's wife.
Oh, okay.
They become married. So Chief Chirpa is Rayleigh. So So Chirpa is Buzza's son.
Okay.
And he marries Rayleigh. So it's kind of like, they're hanging out and then eventually get married.
Well, not unlike the Zach Gialongo comic that we read a while back, there are a lot of little like deep cut references. I mean, right off the top, you have Wisties, which are from the movies and the show. You got reference to Chukatrak. You've got
Chukatrak, yes,
obviously
the Gorax,
the Sunstar, Dulox, and everything. So it is encompassing all elements of Ewok. It's not just straight up what you see in Return of the Jedi, which I did appreciate. I liked.
Yeah.
I still don't fully understand why they get possessed by the Sunstar. Steve, does that happen in the show?
So I don't know if it happens in the show, but I think the reason why is because Macrit is trying to. He controlled Buzza, Chief Buzza, right?
Okay.
Because Rayleigh's like, oh, I bet it was the Dulox, and obviously it's not. So I think he was trying to influence them to try and figure something else out.
Yeah.
Maybe continue his little plan that he had going on there, his little, whatever trafficking going on. But I think he did that to basically influence him. So when he was just like, oh, he's under the power of the Sunstar, that's when the Duloc basically gave him the instructions of like, you need to go to Mount Krana. So it was just like, oh, maybe. So I don't know. Maybe Macrit knew that if Buzza tried to give a different answer, they would be stubborn and go to the Duloc camp anyway. Because he ended up following him. Right. So it's just like, what's the deal with that?
Were the Dulocs kidnapping the Walklings for the sacrifice, or were they completely just under control? That was something that I wasn't sure about.
I feel like they may have been under control. I don't know, or just confused. Maybe
there's a lot going on in this tiny little comic.
There's a lot they don't understand. Yeah. So can you imagine, like, say maybe the Duloc chieftain says, "Oh, you need to go get some Walklings and bring them to Mount Krana," right? Because then, like, who built the giant Ewok thing? Probably the Dulocs, right?
A giant like Ewok effigy basically, but they can like go inside, like they're storing the walklings inside of it. So that's some fine
bizarre.
craftsmanship. Kelly, did you appreciate the craftsmanship of the giant Ewok?
I did very much.
It's like a real Trojan horse-esque,
Yeah,
but not really, right?
It's true. I'm like struggling right now. What's that old the Bees movie?
Oh, is that the Wicker Man?
Yes, the Wicker Man. That's what I'm trying to.
The Wicker Ewok. Yeah. Definitely.
I'm glad that you got that just from Bees.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Yeah. But I'm not as well versed in the Ewoks as either of you two, obviously. But I felt like the Dulogs in this are way darker than the cartoons that I've watched with you all.
Oh yeah,
definitely they are.
They're sacrificing children.
Yeah,
which seems like a step or two above what I remember from the cartoons. So
no, usually in the cartoon, they're like, "It's our anniversary. You got to go steal a present for me."
Yeah,
that's like a Dulog plot. So them like capturing and murdering children is it's an escalation.
Few steps above. Yeah, it's escalation.
To be sure.
That's exactly what it is. It's like, whoa, okay, all right.
But the little walkling that he captures in there, it feels like she kills him. I want to say, is a Dulog
really
in front of him?
Like, that's why I wrote that she stomps his life out, because she and they do like the NNNG or whatever, like he's like he just gets stomped out.
And then you don't see him again. So I kind of feel like she killed that Dulog. I don't know, but I feel like a Dulog's life was taken.
She seriously like stomped his lights out, man. Yeah. It's brutal. So
fun to see the Gorax again. The Gorax, was that Caravan of Courage, Steve? I'm trying to remember. Is that Caravan of Courage?
Yes.
Okay, it is.
Caravan of Courage, yep. All the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, fun to see the big monster again. And they were trying to take Mace and Cindel's family like as sacrifices. So I mean that does kind of pan out, I guess. It just makes sense. Who knows?
Yeah, probably just eat them one at a time or something.
Who knows why a Gorax does
snack.
What a Gorax does.
Gorax midnight snack or something. Yeah.
This is something we've been talking about with the cartoon a lot, Sally. There's been a couple episodes where like we felt like something was set up in the beginning and then you don't get any payoff on it. This was kind of the opposite, because we had I don't even remember what they are, like the warthog pig monster bears. Wolf bears.
Wolf bears, yeah.
Wolf bears. You have the wolf bears in the beginning and you see them sort of riding them and capturing them and everything. And then I forgot about them. And so for the resolution to be that they call them in and just kind of like use them as a blunt instrument, I thought was really clever. I liked that payoff.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of a nice expedient way to wrap that up instead of having like a huge fight scene.
Right.
It's like a little more clever and a little bit more direct, which I appreciate.
Yeah. So this is definitely the most serious Ewok thing I feel like that I've ever encountered in its brief pages here.
Even more than the one where the entire planet will just die if they don't.
That's true. The planet
get what they need to.
Contingent on children
like,
finding.
Oh yeah, we need to be there by like 7 p.m. So we'll leave at 2, I guess, or something.
I had a pretty good time with it, and I think the length is probably part of the reason why I liked it as much as I did. I don't know that I would have wanted like a full graphic novel of this story in this tone, but I felt like dropped into this like collection of spooky stories, it serves its purpose pretty well.
Well, maybe if it was like a mystery, right? Like a spooky mystery, so that we like had, Master Macret, like fooling people multiple times.
Yeah.
And in several nights where walklings were like, we got the whole picture of like, because they told us like, oh, it happened during the night. Like, what if it happened like 2 or 3 nights,
Definitely. Yeah.
So,
well, it's interesting to read this in the context of the episode that we just covered. Sally, we just covered an episode called The First Apprentice, and it's about Logray's first apprentice coming back and basically being a Sith. So for this to be Logray's master also turned evil.
It's interesting, yeah.
Logray's student coming back and turning evil kind of, it works well with the episodes that we're covering. But overall, I liked it pretty well. Let's talk Yub Nubs. How many Yub Nubs do we give this? Sally, what do you think? On a scale of 1 to 5 Yub Nubs, where would you put this bad boy?
I mean, I quite enjoyed this. I agree with you. I thought the length was like really nice, and it genuinely felt like a story that somebody'd be telling like around a campfire or something, which I appreciate. I'd give it like I'd give it 5 yub nubs. I really enjoyed it.
Whoa, yeah, all right.
I love the ending. You know, the ending is a very classic.
Oh, yeah.
Sacrifice still has to be made, and it was. And you just have an off-camera scream while Macrit, I guess, gets killed by the Gorax. Big
twist. What's twist?
Big close there. It really was. Really was. I think I'm gonna give it a 4.5 because I did, like, after I read it, I had to go back and look again and be like, but why and how? And there was things that, like, I felt like connections could have been made a little bit more. So you know what? I'm gonna say 4. I'm gonna say 4. Steve, how about you?
I was gonna say 4.5. I'm gonna give it 4.5. And
Right
it's
in the
funny for me, like I got hung up on the part where he's basically has them possessed, right? Because the blurbs are white, and all of a sudden the blurbs are orange, and I was just like, "Huh, that blurb is orange. That probably means something." And I'm like, I'm so out of practice with reading comics, so I was like, "What does it mean?" And I was like, "Well, the eyes are orange."
Yeah.
And the writing's orange, so maybe that has to do with that. And I was like, oh, it must mean that he's possessed, and like someone's speaking through him, or he's basically like telling the truth.
Yeah.
Right.
But there was, so I liked it visually, but that's what I mean. I felt like there was a little bit of clunkiness in actually like telling you what was going on. What was your Oak of Arc moment, Steve? Sally, this is our negative, the thing that we didn't like about it. So Steve, what's your Oak of Arc?
You know, I don't know if there was any point that I was like, oh, that just rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know. Maybe the fact that like we didn't get any Gorax action. Oh, I know what it was. It was my disappointment was when I started writing the synopsis, I was like, oh yeah, what were those animals called that they were hunting? And I was like, oh, it's the Bora. So I started writing Bora, and then I like went back and checked something on like the first page or second page, and it said Beowulf, and I was like, oh, well, that's dumb. Why is it called a Bora horn that calls a Beowulf? Why don't you just call them Bora? So it's just like that's such a better name than Beowulf.
Beowulf.
Or Wolf Bear, or whatever they're called.
Beowulf seems like when you don't remember what they're called, and you're like, those bear.
Kind of looks like a bear wolfish thing. Oh yeah, Beowulf. Oh yeah, that's
So the name Beowulf is yours. What about you? What about you, Sally? What's your negative moment? Your Oak of Arc?
I mean, I just didn't want them to kill the Beowulf.
Oh, okay.
Which is
pretty cool looking.
A wishy-washy vegetarian about it. But I was like, no, not the Beowulf.
Did they give you more pig vibes, like boar?
Yes.
Like that's what got me. That I was like, huh.
Yeah.
They make like a
nothing about it looks wolfy. You know, like they're kind of
maybe the hair. They had like a furl on top of their head, almost like puma.
Yeah.
Right, like a wild boar kind of thing. So
I mean, for me, I think it really was just there was just some confusion about like it took me a minute to straighten things out, and so I don't know, that bothered me. That took away from it a little bit
with the possession, that kind of thing, like or
possession, and even like Macrit, like why he was doing it. I still am like not 100%, and like why did they have so many walklings, and if they had so many walklings, why did they need the chief's son? And like it's just a bunch of things that I feel like overcomplicate the story and don't really add much to it. So I guess that's where I'm gonna be a nerd about it. Ichiwawa moment, Sally. What was your favorite moment?
I mean, I probably have 2 answers to this, and one is like maybe cheating a little bit. I think as far as the Ewoks go, I mean, this is dark, but I actually really like the way it ended with what's his name being eaten by the thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like adding that level of darkness kind of rounds it out in a nice way.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like the stakes are real. So I actually liked that. I thought it was good. But also in the comic in general, I was super stoked about Grit, the bug creature that is part of the Resistance. And I don't know anything about that character, but I love him and I will die for him.
You'll die for him. Wow.
How cute was that, right? The script. Oh man.
Yeah, so that's funny. So that's part of the frame story that goes throughout this whole Tales from Vader's Castle collection. Yeah, they're a good little crew, but that bug character is pretty cute. He's pretty cute. What about you, Steve? What was your Ichiwawa moment?
So for me, mine was a tiny little blurb that I discovered the bottom of the first page of the Ewok part.
Okay.
And this answers a question that we brought up way back in the beginning of the show is, are the Ewoks speaking English or did they learn English? Right? So when we were talking about where does this show take place? Does it take place after the Empire? Because, well, they're speaking English, so they must, I mean, naturally, logically, it would be after, right? Well, at the bottom, there's a little asterisk, and it says translated from Ewokese, and I was just like, there it is.
That being your favorite part is maybe the most on-brand thing you've ever done.
Nerd.
I mean, come on.
You're right.
It's to put
right
that
there.
in there, like, you didn't need to do that. You didn't. We
Nobody
know
can
they're
deny.
speaking Ewok. Well, but it's like to put that in. Oh, by the way, this was translated from Ewokese. Like,
Ewok.
put the captions on, put the closed captions on, for Ewokese. You know?
I mean, mine is maybe equally nerdy. I love little continuity drops that aren't heavy-handed. I don't need something that's this huge, like we have to pause everything and explain something that you don't need explained. But I just liked right when it started and you had the Wisties in there. I was like, perfect. I love that because that goes back to the movie and the episode that featured the Wisties, and all the little references to Katrak and all that I really liked. So that's probably mine, but I think my honorable mention is the same as Sally's, and that is that dark ending, that last panel where you know what's going to happen and you don't see it coming. It leaves you kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I appreciated that. Definitely.
Did you notice that Makrit's headdress is the same as Logray's?
I did.
When he is that must be like the shaman headdress.
Ceremonial, that like gets passed down. Yeah. Another little bit of continuity.
Little drop, yeah.
I read all of the Tales of Vader's Castle, so I didn't just read the Ewok thing. I read the whole thing, and they're pretty solid. They're pretty solid overall. I don't, just like we've been saying with the Lego specials, like the frame story. I don't need.
Do they tie in like somehow, like all the frames?
Not really. Not really.
Okay.
They're just like, oh, I know somebody who's in a situation like this. And we have like a little flashback to a story. So not super seamless there, but the individual stories, I think, do a nice job of being creepy Star Wars stories.
Yeah.
And still feeling Star Warsy. So yeah, I think it's a fun collection overall.
Oh yeah. They did a good job.
Yeah.
Sally, always a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
Do you have any other podcast stops this Halloween season?
Well, definitely. I will be on How's Things.
Sure.
We will be discussing all things Halloween as usual.
That's right. Yep. We're going to be talking a little bit about author Josh Mallerman, who's most famous for the Bird Box, which was turned into the Netflix movie with Sandra Bullock. So yeah, but we're hitting everything Halloween-y over there. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, we share a YouTube page with How's Things. So all you have to do is just click over and you're right there.
Clickety
all right.
click.
What else? What else you got, Sally?
Well, I was invited back on the X-Men podcast.
Oh, previously on X-Men. Okay.
But I don't think we have, or I don't know the official release date of that yet because we are in early stages of Halloween talks.
Yeah, that's all handled by the Radio Meanwhile business office.
We did just dip into the second week of October. So
yeah, we did. Okay. So you can find Sally all over the place. That's exciting. That's good times. Next time here on this Endorian Life after Halloween, we're going to be back on Endor. We're going to be talking about season 2, episode 7A, Hard Sell.
Sounds like a Nick Cage movie or something.
It really does. I wish it was. Yeah, the second one. Yeah.
He's going to be one of the characters.
Yep. I hope he will be. All right. Thanks for Halloweening with us, Sally.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love it.
Sally. See you next time. This Endorian Life is brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network. Other shows on the network include 90s Music Got Me Like, previously on X-Men, and 9021 Here We Go. Share your thoughts on this and upcoming episodes by following us on Facebook or Twitter at Endorian Life, and please rate, subscribe, and share this show wherever you get your podcasts.
Chihuahua.